Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Crawford. Today I'll be giving a speech on carbon emissions and why you should live with the lowest carbon footprint possible. Global warming has been on the forefront of scientific minds for decades. Around the world, attempts have been made to reduce the effect that our modern life is having on the environment, with little to no avail. This poses a very important question. How can we effectively solve this problem that has been baffling scientific minds, stumping politicians, and boggling the minds of the collective population for the past 20 years? The answer is very simple. It starts with you. It starts with each individual taking the responsibility of making the world a better, cleaner place to live. How can you make the world a better, cleaner place to live? Well, the answer is by reducing carbon emissions. Let's learn about the impact of rising carbon dioxide levels on Earth. Now, carbon dioxide is a harsh chemical compound. It replaces the ozone, it keeps in harmful radiation from the sun. It's a greenhouse gas, meaning that it will retain heat, it will contribute to global warming, which we've actually already seen evidence of taking place. In the last century, approximately 500 billion tons of carbon has already been introduced into the atmosphere. And this is posited by warming caused by cumulative carbon emissions towards the trillionth ton. This can be responsible for the global temperature increase because, as stated in the proportionality of global warming to carbon emissions, temperature increases between 1 to 2 degrees Celsius per trillion tons of carbon a minute. And over the last century, with those 500 billion tons of carbon being added to the atmosphere, we have seen a temperature increase of 0.4 degrees Celsius, or 0.4 degrees Celsius. Increased carbon dioxide also increases ultraviolet B retention. This is evidenced by greenhouse effect impacts of ultraviolet B radiation, carbon dioxide, and ozone on vegetation. In larger concentrations, carbon dioxide can cause blood acidity, it can cause fatigue, it can cause restlessness, headaches, sweating, and a very high concentration, it can even kill. However, it's not all bad. Carbon dioxide also helps people. It helps carry oxygen to the vital organs of the body. It helps in regulating blood pH. It is a main component of supplying plants with the carbohydrates they need in a process I'm sure you've all heard called photosynthesis. So why should we reduce the amount of carbon dioxide? As stated, CO2 levels are getting increasingly high, more than natural. So it is in our hands to do something about it. So how can you make the earth healthier? The first and most important step is knowing what exactly your carbon footprint is made of. Once that information is known, it's easy to start cutting back. So what is your carbon footprint made of? Does it consist of? Well, it's everything you do. Everything in your life contributes to your carbon footprint. The clothes you wear, the car you drive, the food you eat, the house you live in, down to your body itself is all a contributing factor into the amount of carbon that you put into the atmosphere. And now that you know, it should be easy to start cutting back in areas of excess. One easy way of cutting back is to start living a lower carbon lifestyle, is to start your own small garden. This reduces the need to drive to a store for fresh food. It also helps absorb CO2 as the plant itself will break down the CO2 into carbohydrates and oxygen. Another great way to reduce emissions is to drive your car as little as possible. Transportation takes up approximately a third of US carbon dioxide emissions. This is stated in real-world carbon dioxide impacts of traffic congestion. So dust off that old bike in the corner the next time you need to make a quick trip to the convenience store. Shop for the month instead of for the week. Plan your expenses out over the course of the year so you only need to take one large trip out, go shop for clothes and such per year. And that'll cut down even further on driving. If you're committed to the cause and you want to cut your emissions as much as humanly possible, well, there are more difficult ways to cut down. A major area in which that you could cut down on carbon emissions is to live off the grid. Living off the grid helps to reduce fossil fuel use in the United States because, as I'm sure most of you know, fossil fuel accounts for a large percentage of the carbon emissions in the United States. And it also is what mainly runs our power stations. So if you were to live off the grid in a small house or on solar or other forms of renewable energy, you would reduce the overall power need of the US. That would also make it more likely for the United States to convert entirely to renewable energy. Another more difficult way of making an impact on the carbon emissions is to only eat what you grow. This would make it so that you are only taking what you need from the environment around you with no excess. Grocery stores tend to overbuy food, leading to an excess of rotting food when it gets thrown out, causing even more carbon emissions. This isn't only a benefit to the environment either. Growing your own food is a healthier option. It reduces intake of pesticides and preservatives, and overall it helps your body. Living sustainably also helps the economy, as stated in the Routledge Handbook of Energy Economics. The economic impact of lowering carbon emissions overall would be a positive one. Reducing your carbon footprint on the world can assist the generations to come by creating a cleaner world. It will aid in the natural growth of the earth. It will provide more oxygen and natural substances for humans to, in turn, use to their advantage. Even if you feel like you won't make a difference, you can contribute to the trend of making a healthier world, and more people will catch on and join. With enough effort, we can heal the earth and help it become stronger than it has ever been. Thank you.